Yeah, your UFO encounter, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes, I would like to report a close encounter with a UFO, a really close encounter, not only by myself, but also by my wife, Carla, and my son, Hermano, and my daughter, Luisa. This was back in 1981, when I was in the faculty of Harvard University. And my family decided to go up in the mountains, in the Italian mountains of the central Apennine. It is called La Maiella, Il Gran Sasso. And at midnight, we moved from a valley in this complex. We moved to a town which was 1,400 meter high. So we talk about 800 meter change, with the streets, going like a serpentine, like this, up and going up. And this was in a very thick wood, extremely thick wood. And then my wife will describe you what we saw. And what I want to report, that when we went back to the USA, I was in Cambridge in Massachusetts. And all four of us were interviewed by the local MUFON, which are made all scientists and engineers, and we were interviewed independently. And all four reports reported the same thing. All four interviews confirmed that all four of us had seen the same thing. However, this interview is available. It's in the web. And if anybody is interested, just send me an email, I'll send it to you. The only point is that the interview was anonymous. None of because I was in the faculty of Harvard University, I could not make a claim that I had seen a UFO very close by. So this is what I want to say. So, Carla, my wife, Carla, why don't you tell what did we see, all four of us?
Well, basically, our children, is important to say, they were 14 and 12, so they were teenagers, and we moved from visiting relatives at the bottom of the valley to the top of the mountain where Ruggero's house was, because he was born in that town. And it was pitch dark, of course, in the thick forest. And as we were going up, all of a sudden, around midnight, we saw there was a light ahead of us. And it was the typical conformation of lights that we all have seen also in other places. Meaning that there were lights that were running, and then there were some other lights that were projected to the floor. And so we were very scared, but we had to go up. We went up, and when we arrived around, the road was winding up very, very steeply, as Ruggero was saying. And when we arrived at the other end, where the object was supposed to be, we thought that it was there. It was not there. All of a sudden it was in another area lower to us where we were before, we think. I mean, it was confirmed by all four of us. It was confirmed by all four of us. So Ruggero and our son, they went out, and we were scared. We stayed in the car. But so there was no noise, there was just light, and it was like a very, very big object that then was projecting light so profoundly.
Was not that large.
Right, but no, but it was hard to say, in the sense that you see this object at night, even if it's small, it looks like an enormous object to me. It was, but it was not a huge, immense object. It was maybe, to me, it was like bigger than a car, but it's hard to say. But the important part is that all of a sudden the forest was totally silent, because those forests are inhabited by a lot of animals that are wild, so there are all type of nice noises, birds, all kind of creatures,
Dogs, wild dogs.
wild dogs, raccoons, wolves, a lot of animals, and they were very noisy before, and all of a sudden there was this complete...
The moment we arrived.
Yeah, the moment we arrived and we went down and we saw it, it was a complete silence. And that was, to me, was the scariest thing.
It was
very eerie because there was total silence, and we did not expect that. So we just didn't know what to do. We turned around and looked, and all of a sudden, this object kind of took off quickly across the valley. But you can integrate, you can add.
Yeah, first
was hovering. I mean, you can describe that part.
Yeah, this one maybe I'll describe.
Yeah, because he basically, my daughter and I were inside.
Inside the car.
My son and Ruggero and
my son and I, we went out. We went very close to they remained in the car. Yeah.
So then you can, and then we all of a sudden it went up and down and disappeared in the valley. But so basically we were just very scared, and all of a sudden when they disappeared, all the noise of the forest came back. All the animals and the dogs, and they all started to bark. And actually, I think they were barking more than before. Yes. Maybe they were reacting to something.
They were afraid themselves.
Yeah,
like us.
Right. So then we went on the top of the mountain where we were sleeping, our sleeping quarters, and all of a sudden I became so scared that before I was saying, oh, that's nothing, maybe it's some soldiers, they were just practicing. Maybe there were lights at night. I mean, and then I was just very scared, and I couldn't sleep. So the morning after, we woke up and very carefully started to talk to the relatives and people that we knew, because we were afraid to be taken as, visionary or crazy people. And they started to, all of a sudden, people who had similar experiences or different, but always in this realm of UFO or unusual phenomenon came out, and they started to tell us that they seen as well, and that was reported also in the annals of ufology. Yes. I mean, that's all I can say. But it was quite an experience, and our children after that, they are very interested in UFO. Okay. They didn't deny it anymore. So it was quite an experience for all of us. So then,
we saw this light in the middle, way up this mountain. We were climbing very, very steep mountain. So we're all discussing Italian style, and always, agitated. And so we noticed light, but when somebody was doing a welding, they were welding, the welding light, it was very, very brilliant. So we didn't pay attention. So we kept talking about each other, and telling jokes and things. And then going in this serpentine, it was at the beginning of one serpentine. There it was. It was, this from here, and we were inside the car at that time. So we went from here and the bar over there. And so I immediately froze. I was driving. I immediately froze the car, and instantly my son and I went out because we want to see what is that object. So while in the back, Carla and my wife Carla and my daughter Luisa remained in the car. They were afraid, they were scared, didn't want to get out. And my son and I went very close, and that's what it appears that we have some missing time.
Yes.
Yes. We have some missing time. Why so? Because what my memory and my son, this is all recorded. When my memory and my son's memory, what we remember is from seeing this object out of the car. We saw the object, but then I remember that I was driving. I remember this was a turn like this, So I remember that I made the turn, and the object was no longer visible because in the back of thick trees. I did not see it. I do not remember. I was driving. The moment which I see the object, then I go back, and then all of a sudden the object disappears because it's in the back of the tree. No, I only remember this. Besides the actual time that we missed. And then when we finally finished the tournament and we went back on the top, so we saw the picture where we were before, and that's where Carla remembered very vividly, because what we saw that UFO exactly on the edge of the streets where we were before.
That
exactly
was so
there.
odd.
So that's what made us
and
all.
You didn't see it move at all.
Yeah.
Just there.
And so we were frozen because we didn't what to do. Then also this object was very very strange object because it was the typical oval with all the lights rotating around.
Colored lights.
All colors. My son had excellent eyesight. He can describe all the details of the light and so on. And then from this object, there was a huge emission of light, like a cone of light, like an exhaust of energy. It was speeding up in the sky like, with this frequency. Total silence.
Yes, and also down. Light was down and up.
Yes, also down, but primarily down. And down for the suspension, to keep the object suspended. But the other was an exhausting exhaust.
Right. And there was the light was so very unusual too, because all of a sudden the leaves of all these trees almost projected.
Please give me the paper I gave you, if you can. Thank you.
Almost projected like a cone of light themselves. That was very unusual.
See, this light.
Let me see, Ruggero.
See, this light. This light.
Right. But also they projected some light across or
the leaves. Tell them the leaves. Tell them the leaves were a cone of darkness.
It was just very, very unusual. Never see something like that.
No, it is not. But a detail maybe.
How much missing time was there?
We don't
know. Yeah, I estimate in the range of minutes, maybe.
Minutes,
yeah.
But
not
I cannot
hours,
say because we were inside and we were scared. But Ruggero immediately said that. Yeah.
And you saw something like that?
Yes. Yeah,
but
the darkness of light.
That's from isodual light, isn't it? So.
No, the isodual is antimatter.
Yeah, so.
But this was visible.
You saw it like that, but.
This is invisible to us. This is isodual because there was a light that was visible to us.
You saw something like that, but it was visible.
It was similar to that, but was visible.
Okay.
Yeah. Incidentally, one of the point for me of great emotion is when we arrived. We arrived on the edge of this tournament. We arrived. I froze the car and we saw this object from here to there.
Yeah.
Immediately, everybody in the car start yelling. So I start yelling, everybody, please shut up. Let me hear. Yeah, and so there was a moment of silence in the car.
Yeah.
The moment of silence, that's where we saw total silence, not only from the environment, but the total silence from the object that was emitting an enormous amount of energy.
The object was
zero,
totally
silent.
Yeah.
That moment I said, this is not a human technology. There is no human government has been able to reproduce this 1981 this technology. That was very emotional.
Roger, I would like to add that in the morning after, we didn't know what to do, what are we going to do, and I started to say, maybe there were just soldiers there making some night exercises, practicing. So we went to the Carabinieri and we reported this. And they laughed at us. They said, our soldiers don't go at night.
They were laughing at us. We said, our soldiers, they don't go in the middle of the night, in the middle of the forest to do what?
Be sure there was nobody there.
There was nobody there. No. There was no military, no soldiers, nothing there.
Because it took us a while to me at least, to come to trips to come to the fact that indeed it was something so anomalous and so unusual. I was trying to explain it in different ways.
So let me tell you the end of the story. The end of the story, so we are now at the top of the second tournament, and we were looking at UFO longer distance, because we were now in the top, and UFO was we were before. And we were looking, and for a few minutes, we were all, my son and I went out of the car, and on the edge of the street, there was a precipice like this. And we were looking at this object down there, astonished. And my daughter and they were still in the car. But all of a sudden, the object started hovering very, very slowly, because it was in the middle of the trees. So it started hovering very, very slowly. And my son
was yelling,
he started yelling, "It's hovering, it's hovering!" The moment my daughter and my wife heard that the object was moving, they started yelling, come back in the car, come back. So we had no other choice. My son and I go inside the car and go back to keep them quiet. But what we saw, however, that it moved over the top of the, slowly, very, very slowly, moved over the top of the tree, and then moved over the valley.
In the valley it was quick.
When the valley accelerated, then accelerated. The moment the moment when it went away, that's when Carla said that the noise of the forest came back.
Yeah, it was very
all
scary.
The noise,
That was the scariest part, the noise, the fact that there was no noise.
Again, the interview and the description is available. For be happy to send it to anybody. Send me an email, and I'll send a link for the. Want to see the details?
Okay. What's the link?
We were interviewed. The person who interviewed was the head of the of Boston. No, of the Boston Boston Planetarium. In Boston there is an important planetarium, very, very big, very important, tied to the university, and the head of that planetarium at that time was involved in the MUFON. And he's the one who interviewed us.
He made the interviews.
So we were interviewed separately. But
incidentally, that's why, Roger, that's why I became interested in studying
this sort of thing.
I'm sorry?
So that's why you started off on this sort of thing, the ISO dual.
That's starting, but primarily starting the energy, how can they move?
Yeah.
The propulsion, the geometry in which they are, where is the energy coming from, and yes.
We had also like some publication that was in a PDF, Ruggero. Maybe we should look for it available. The propulsion of the UFO, you remember? You wrote something in paper.
Isodual propulsion, yes. It was a paper, yes.
Long time ago.
It was part of the book on the internet. Yes.
Oh, really? I
didn't know that. But it would be nice to send. That was specifically for UFO.
I think we had a link somewhere because we have so much stuff.
A confirmation of this is another thing, something also equally for me as a physicist equally unbelievable, is that as Carla indicated, the moment we spoke very, very privately to a relative and friends, a lady, one of my aunt, she was a teacher in high school, that a few nights early had seen this object, but had seen the object in the sky. However, since she was a science teacher, she told me, Ruggero, what hit me from her viewpoint, what caught her attention, was that around this object that was in the sky, the view of the stars were deformed.
Like lenses.
Like a lens effect. Now, all the stars around were deformed, where the distance was not a conventional one. If you remove the UFO, you have a certain relative distance in between the stars that you can see constellation, non-constellation, knew the constellation. But this object was right there, and everything was distorted. So I'm a physicist. And I did some calculation, and the result is unbelievable, unbelievable, because it turns out that to achieve that deformation that he told me, in order even the dimension, he gave me an idea of the dimension, to achieve that deformation, the gravitational lenses, to achieve that gravitational lens, the object had contained more energy as existing in the entire sun. Now, these are my calculations.
Go for the bending the light.
Could be immensely wrong, but the one thing is certain, that the amount of energy in that object was beyond any amount that we can conceivably take, beyond which we, just unbelievable, unbelievable. For me, it was I couldn't believe it. I repeat the calculation many times. And to do this gravitational lens, you need energy. And you need a star, you need an object. You have, for Earth, to give you an idea, only the Earth.
Well, that would be bending of light by gravity, though, wouldn't it? So
also that one.
Wouldn't it be bent? You couldn't bend it by some other means.
Exactly. Now, the reason why the energy was more than the sun, why? Because if you look at the moon, you do see a little bit of lensing around the moon.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of lensing, but it's very, very small.
Yeah.
And she was talking about meters and meters of deformation. That you do the proportion. So you go from the mass of the energy in the moon and the energy of the sun. You need the energy of the sun to do that type of deformation. Even conceptually, you can see a confirmation, not only with the numbers on the equation, but you can see it by looking at the sky that.
Also, Ruggero, your aunt always talking about this unusual lensing effect. Ruggero's aunt, after that evening, the day after she was in the store, is a small town, and was talking to somebody in the store and was saying, last night I saw something so unusual in the sky. And another person that was, another customer, it says, I saw it too. I was not going to talk to anybody because I thought I didn't tell anybody because I thought that people would say that I'm a visionary, but I saw it too. So in the town, other people had the same view. So that gives credibility to the aunt, to Ruggero's aunt, I think.
Yeah, this person claimed that this object was in the middle of also in the middle of the night, but it was actually in the street. It was just sitting. We arrived and it was right there.
So it was just
anyhow. So there are many of those stories. It's not
right. And
there
also
are now millions of these stories.
We had another person, another uncle. I mean, we are talking, when we started to talk about, other people came. And this uncle said that one night he was doing the same route between the bottom of the valley where there was part of the family, visiting other family on the top, and he said that all of a sudden he was driving the same route that we took. All of a sudden he heard this, he had this feeling of total silence, and he was sure that somebody was watching him.
But he did not see him.
He didn't see anybody.
He saw nothing. He
saw
no
nothing,
light.
but he just felt that somebody.
Yeah,
and so he became very scared.
Here is the invisibility of the Earth. That's why I started studying. How can this object become invisible? The middle of the night, with this enormous light that spit out, had to be visible. No, it was not visible.
And this is
to quiet the noise of a forest.
It became invisible, did it?
He became invisible.
Yeah. But he felt it, that somebody was watching him. And this man, this Ruggero's uncle, somebody was born there. So he has been doing the route many times. There was no reason for him to be scared. Something was very unusual that deep down
the forest that was silent. That's why he became
silence and somebody watching him.
So it was probably some sound cancelling device. You can cancel out sound by certain devices, can't you?
It could be.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Okay.
So Roger, we told you very openly. Now I'm now
okay.
I'm an independent
So
scientist.
you were studying. You study this sort of thing after your UFO encounter.
Yes, this close encounter was scientifically for me was the best that could possibly happen because it stimulated me to ask questions and to.
So how did you get the idea that there was a different type of light? You got ordinary light
Because of the leaves were emitting the darkness was the cone of darkness in the back of leaves, which is impossible with ordinary light. Ordinary light, you see a refraction. Some of the light refracts, and so in the back of if you have a source of light on one side and the leaf, in the back of light you'll see some light.
So you then started investigating about these different types of lenses.
Yes, how can this possibly? But what is the light that can produce? Can has no refraction.
Okay.
This is a mystery. But I could not say publicly what I was doing because nobody will believe me on the reason why I was studying it. So I was doing a theoretical study, and then I tried to understand what I had seen. What I had seen. And UFO have that light, and UFO have the invisible UFO. In my view, has precisely that light.
These UFOs can be visible, and then they can make themselves invisible. So
that's
and the trick is with the lens.
Yes, that's the case. Confirmed with my uncle. My uncle. This was was total independent case. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the reason is, if you are interested in the connection with isodual light, is that the propulsion, interstellar propulsion, in which, as we indicated before, the spacecraft has to extract the energy from space. Apparently,
zero point energy.
Apparently, the energy they can extract is not only with positive energy, but it's also negative energy. And so in other words, in some way that we do not know, of course, the UFO can extract negative energy from the environment, from space. The moment they do that, the light that they emit is no longer ordinary light, it's isodual light. They become instantly invisible. Yes. They disappear in front of us.
Okay.
So you're quite the material now.
Okay.
So you're quite a machine there, huh?
It's nice. Hi, little guy.
What was that contact for where the website or whatever for the?
Oh, that I don't remember. Tell them to send me an email.
Okay.
I have it in my office in Florida.
Do you want a drink? Do you want a drink?
No, you're supposed to be our guest. We start discussion.
Okay. Thank you.